Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. We actually have a very busy podcast ahead of us, so let's just get right to it. What's the news?
News. October 4th? I don't know, it was Friday. Blizzard announced a whole bunch of stuff. Like, a whole bunch of stuff. We all thought that buckets were going away, so we're hoping they'd announce that, and they didn't. We still think buckets are going away. But we have zero confirmation of that from Blizzard's side that I know of. But we're operating with that in mind. We're doing our tier list with that in mind. We're doing our analysis with that in mind. So let that be a caveat in case buckets don't go away and then some things get weirder. On top of that, we thought a rotation was coming. And a rotation is coming. Everything in standard is going to rotate out. Everything in wild that is not in standard is going to be back in.
Yeah. And ADWCTA means everything. So here is exactly what is happening for the arena. Starting on October 8th, which is 2 days from us recording Tuesday. Here are the changes to arena. First of all, dual class arena is coming back. So what that means is when you start an arena run, you will first pick a hero, and then you will pick a second hero. And that second hero is the hero power that you're going to have. And the cards that you're going to be offered come from both of those classes, in addition to neutral cards. Now, the sets that will be in the arena include Curse of Naxxramas, Goblins versus Gnomes, Blackrock Mountain, the Grand Tournament, League of Explorers, Whispers of the Old Gods, One Night in Karazhan, Mean Streets of Gadgetzan, Journey to Un'Goro, Knights of a Frozen Throne, and Kobolds and Catacombs, and notably, no basic or classic sets.
Yeti. Say goodbye to your Yetis. Well, it's just one Yeti. The Mech Yeti's going to still be there. So say goodbye to the Chillin version of the Yeti. Say goodbye to your Bloodfred Raptor, because they won't be in the arena anymore. Say goodbye to your Flame Strikes. I don't know, what else is a normal standard card everyone knows?
True Silvers.
See? We both thought of the second most iconic arena class card.
I mean, that's just super iconic, right? And we're thinking of the two most kind of iconic arena classes. I would say it's, it has to be Mage and Paladin. Very beginner-friendly, and both of them reigned supreme for very memorable periods of time. And I think those are the two cards that, throughout the history, you would most associate, or if not most associate, top three associate with those classes.
Yeah. So there's so many parts of this to analyze. I think we should start with what it means to not have classic and basic. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's just start with what it means to not have buckets, right? We haven't talked about not having buckets since they first announced that they were going to experiment with this in the next rotation. And that was like over a month ago. So let's just go back. We're not going to dig into whether it's good or not. We're just going to look at what the effects are.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. To first of all break this all down, because if we're just talking about it's like, oh, let's talk about this next patch. That's way too much.
Too much.
So, no, I love that. Let's talk about the removal of buckets and practically what it means for you guys playing. All right, do you want to start off?
Yeah. So if you don't remember a life without buckets because you have only started playing in the last 2 years, or if you forgot because it was a really freaking long time ago that we didn't have buckets, here's what life is like without buckets. 1, your decks are worse. That's the first thing you're going to notice. Screw how your draft goes. You're going to enter the arena and everyone's decks are worse because it is an entirely randomized set of cards. Now, this has a caveat to it because micro adjusts are still in. They're not going anywhere. We don't know what they're going to do with the micro adjusts when this rotation hits. They're obviously still in, but normally they don't micro adjust until a couple weeks in. But it's like a dual class arena event that's happening for the first 3 weeks. So they are getting zero good data, and I don't know when they're going to micro adjust. I don't know if they're going to start with the existing micro adjusts from Saviors, which make no sense because all the cards and Saviors are leaving the arena. So I don't know what's going on with the micro adjust, but if there are no micro adjusts, then all your arenas are going to have worse cards. The other part that may have a caveat on this is in dual class arenas last time, they boosted the rate of class cards without telling anybody beforehand.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
So Classic is gone, so I don't know if they need to boost the rate of class cards to see all the class cards, but if they do that again, then it will be even more insane. And maybe that will boost how good the classes are. But generally, so what's going to happen is this event is going to last for 3 weeks, and then after Halloween, the normal arena will kick back in, which will still be no standard, all wild, no classic, no basic. So in that meta, all your decks are going to be crap compared to current decks. In the metas that happened before that, we don't really know. It depends on what their actual rules are for this event, which they don't tell us as usual. At least not in detail. So it's hard to make predictions for the next 3 weeks. But generally speaking, decks worse without buckets.
Yeah, and I would elaborate a bit on that because I think some people might be listening. It's like, well, wait, doesn't it all average out anyways? And the answer is no, it doesn't. One of the things that buckets do is it increases the quality of your deck because it actually gives you more chances. Because when you don't have buckets, what ends up happening is, like on average, you'll have like good card, medium card, bad card, right? And whenever you have buckets, whenever they're good, you have a choice of the best one that is good. So, and then whenever it's bad, you have a choice of one of the quote bad cards to pick the best of the bad cards and the best of the good cards. So, what ends up happening is you are actually boxed in a lot more without buckets. You have to either pick the best card, which might not be that great for your deck or your situation because of curve or whatnot or lack of synergy. But for the bad picks previously, you got to sort of get that out of the way and pick the best of the bad cards, which I think you guys can really sort of associate with because a lot of bad picks you're just like, oh, this isn't a bad pick at all, I have the synergy for this. So just with these sort of considerations, your deck with the bucket system in place ends up being so much better, so much more synergistic than decks without buckets. It'll be very, very clear. Now, with sort of the kind of environment that we're going into with all of these new sets, you might just be like, well, it's so apples and oranges, I can't see a comparison. But in general, like if we were to have a control group and do buckets versus non-buckets, the non-buckets, which we are going into, the deck quality is so much lower.
Yeah. And it's so much lower that the lack of classic and basic sets is not going to by itself offset it by a long shot. So I know classic and basic set, relatively speaking, have worse cards than the newer expansions. But one, we're in the older expansions, which don't quite have the power creep that some of the newer expansions have. Actually, no, we do have Ungoro there. It's kind of a mixed bag. But
we have starting from MSG.
Yeah, the power creep started. So okay, so but overall, it's the effect of buckets lowering your deck quality is so huge. It may be compensated for by the dual class event, but it won't be normally. So once the event is gone, you'll be back to crappier decks. So the second thing about leaving the bucket system is your decks are not only going to be crappier, overall swings are going to be smaller. This is going to be weird from a dual class perspective because in dual class arena, swings are going to be bigger. But overall, your swings are smaller in a non-bucket environment because, like Merps was saying, when you are in a bucket system, you get synergies, right? Your decks are much more synergized. All synergy is increasing your swing. That's all it ever does. Like, you could look at it and be like, oh, it makes things cooler or whatever, but mechanically speaking, it just makes you swing higher. And when you miss your synergies, it makes you swing lower. And overall, when you're more synergized, it makes you swing higher more so than lower. So you have all these very swingy games that we've kind of gotten used to. That's going to be gone. So games are going to be much more stable. And that means that as a good player, inside of a game, you're going to have more of an effect. Outside of the game in the drafting stage, you're going to have less of an input, right? That was always the trade-off of the bucket system, is that it made drafting so much more interesting and so much more skillful. And by skillful, I mean like beyond like look at a tier list, make sure you have enough drops. I mean like actually creating some kind of like deck with an identity. On the other hand, what it does is it makes the top level skill less useful inside of the game because it made the swing so much bigger. Like to have buckets. Without buckets, your skill in the arena inside the game matters a ton again. So that's a really good thing about the buckets leaving. And one more thing about like the effect, you may think, oh yeah, swings are going lower. The swings are going a lot lower compared to how you think the swings are going to work. Because as swing, especially at the top, and I'm just generally talking about the top, like I don't know, after I don't think the game begins in the arena until after you get 5 wins. So everything I talk about is after you're like 5-1 or 5-2 or 5-0 or whatever. So in that range, the games you see will not only have smaller swing, it will have dramatically smaller swing because good players will disproportionately understand that they can't get synergy stuff anymore. So they'll disproportionately go for synergy stuff less. And so the decks that will result and the decks that will, make it are going to be disproportionately less synergized decks. Right now, you get to 5-1, 5-2, 5-3. Almost all the decks are decently synergized. Or they have a ridiculous legendary or, whatever, like backing them up. Back in the day, that just wasn't true. Back in the day, you can like be in like 10 wins and not see any significant amount of ridiculous legendaries or definitely not well synergized decks. Everyone is more mid-ranged because everyone has to draft more mid-range because you can't be bailed out by the bucket system. You can't say later on when I get offered swipe, power of the wild, or whatever, like I could take a Power of the Wild and that'll save my 2-drop. You can't. You're going to be offered Swipe, crappy card, like Bloodfen Raptor, and like totally undraftable card. And you're going to be looking at your deck and saying like, crap, I guess I need a Bloodfen Raptor, my deck doesn't work. You're going to take a huge value hit. So to prevent that, you're going to need your curve earlier on. And when you do that, you're overall going to be making your deck less thematic. And good players do that more than bad players because they realize how the drafting system work, or they'll adapt in a bit. Like they'll be adapted pretty quickly, and overall everything just stabilizes inside the game.
Yep. All right. Cool. Did you have anything more about the buckets going away?
Let's add one more in there. I like threes.
Oh my god! All right.
Third thing that's gonna happen when buckets are going away. What buckets did, we talked about. I kind of touched on it before as like a supporting argument, not as the main argument. But your draft is going to look very different, obviously, with buckets going away. So the number of decisions you have to make on your draft is dramatically fewer. But everyone's number of decisions made in the draft are all dramatically fewer. And remember, this is the arena. You're only competing against other people who draft under the same rules you draft under. What that means is that 3 or 4 actual decisions you make in a draft that, like, let's say, I'm like a, I don't know, if I play all classes evenly, I think I'm like a 7 to 7.5 win player, right? Let's say compare me to someone who is a HS replay average of 4.5 win per run player. We're going to draft out of 30 picks, 25 to 26 picks the same. Those other 4 to 5 picks is the difference between a good draft and a bad draft, or like a great draft and an okay draft, I guess. And those differences are going to be magnified on the win rate side, because that's the differentiator when it comes to drafts. We talked about skill mattering more, so yes, a more skilled player is going to get a lot more wins, but your draft still matters, and your control of the draft, because there are fewer choices, means the choices matters more. It's like when we talk about aggro. Aggro is hard to play because you have fewer choices, but each choice matters so much more. Like, you can't make a misplay playing aggro, you will just lose. That's not the case when it comes to control. Well, maybe, but in control you have very few choices because you don't have the ability to play cards. And it's not true in mid-range, where you get to wipe up most of your mistakes. Like, it's one of the reasons why I like playing mid-range more, because I make a lot of mistakes compared to other good players. And in mid-range, I don't get punished. So, like, I always say misplays don't matter. Yeah, sure, some misplays matter, but they matter a lot less when you play mid-range compared to when you play aggro. You're also faced with a lot more decisions to kind of balance that out, but no.
All right. Yeah, I think that'll make sense. Welcome to the world of non-buckets. If you've been playing for a while, like a while, you'll know how it feels. But if this is your first time, this will be a new experience, just because it's everything like ADWCTA says. With the bucket systems, like during these past months, whenever I talk to people in preparation for like a Twitch Rivals event, I need to talk to Stein, I need to talk to Shady, because I recognize that, without sort of knowing exactly how the meta is, I might make like 10 to 12 to 15 decisions differently in a draft than the best players. Like, I'm not a slouch. I can do well, but if I want to do the best I possibly can, uh, I can't have all of those differences. And it's definitely possible. Like during the bucket system, if I don't exactly know the meta, I could be crafting my deck to what I think is optimal, but that might be 12 picks different than what like Dr. Stein would pick, who has really played the meta and knows it inside and out, and that's pretty incredible. That's actually pretty insane that someone who is pretty good at Hearthstone like me, but hasn't really dug into the meta, can have that much differences from someone who has played a ton and has sort of optimized their play. But that's all gone now. I don't need anyone's advice. I just draft, and then for those 3 differences in the draft, I just get lucky, and then boom, 12 wins, baby.
The difference is because you can, in a bucket system, you're penalized less for specifying your deck. So you can make your deck like exactly counter the meta, right? In most drafts. You can't do that anymore. So it doesn't matter as much anymore. Also, you don't actually have to play to know the meta anymore.
Yeah.
Because you know the offering odds. And if you know the offering odds, you know how smart players will draft. You know how smart players will draft. You know pretty much the meta after 5 wins. We used to be able to predict very clearly which class was going to be better, like, exactly what the meta looks like. We get more vague when the bucket system came on board, and we're like, well, it depends on what cards are misbucketed. Well, guess what? No cards are going to be misbucketed anymore. There's still micro adjusts, but until micro adjusts kick in, we now know 100% of the meta again. Like, if they continue to not have buckets in when the next set is released, we'll tell you exactly where the meta is. Like before day 1, like we used to, right? Like, and you'll step in and you'll be like, oh, wow, you guys are so right. How do you know all this exact stuff? And we'll be like, math. We have an algorithm. You put it together. You extrapolate a little bit more. You know all the decks in the meta are. You know which ones are going to be better. You know what's going to happen. Some classes are more powerful. Some archetypes are more powerful. You know it. You don't have to play the game. Playing the game is kind of irrelevant for knowing the meta.
Playing the game in 2019.
I don't know. If you need to be playing the game to figure stuff out, all that means is that information has not been communicated to you, because this is a turn-based game. So really, you should know how to play the game perfectly optimally if you have all the rules of the game and you have a good knowledge of human behavior, which I think we do generally, and we have an algorithm that does the legwork on it. So we're gonna be more accurate. And I think relative to other players like Merps and I are going to just be at a bigger, like a less of a disadvantage than we used to be, right? Because we would normally play, I don't know, a quarter, a tenth of the games someone like Collins or Shades or Dreads would play. And that means we would have a less good grasp of the very specificities, like, down to the very specified parts of the meta. Like, we'll know the big overall meta, because we could sort of predict it, and then we do play. But now we will know the very precise meta. Before game 1 is played. It's going to be good for us.
So, goodbye bucket system, we assume. All right. So, this is what we're assuming and what everyone is assuming. All right. So, on Tuesday, assuming buckets go away, heed this advice. Okay. Well, now that buckets are going away, what else should we consider about this new enormous patch?
All right, this is the most ridiculous thing happening about this patch. Classic and basic cards are all gone. All of them. Like, I can't, like, it just blows my mind. When I first saw it, I thought it was just like they left it out, right? Like,
everyone thought it was a typo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was confirmed that it was not a typo. It's literally everything not in standard is out, and classic and basic are in standard. So, all right, the backbone of Arena is gone.
Yeah. So guys, this will be the biggest change that you like can't conceptualize.
Mm-hmm.
You just actually can't conceptualize this because so many cards that you have associated with Arena, and they're not flashy cards, right? This is an ultimate infestation. Uh, it's not Abyssal Enforcer. These are not cards
But
in
both of them, by the way, back in the meta.
which are both back in the meta, which is why I mentioned them. But these are cards that you have associated with Arena for such a long time, and you just really haven't thought about. Like Loot Hoarder is gone. Like these staples of the Arena, Argent Squire, Dark Iron.
All right, there's
Dwarf.
like 8 Argent Squires coming back in.
Yeah, but Argent Squire in every class.
Yes.
Acidic Swamp Ooze, our buddy. All of these are going away. So you have all of these curve cards, and most of them are kind of boring, right? Even the quote exciting ones like Dark Iron Dwarf, which is a good card. I mean, it's pretty boring. Its effect is effective, but very small in comparison to some of these other cards. They're all gone. So you're missing tons of, exactly what ADWCTA calls the backbone, the boring backbone of Arena. They're all disappearing, and along with it, they're taking a lot of curve with it as well.
Yeah. So if you think back to what's actually in classic and basic cards, twos were relatively good, fours were relatively good, and ones and threes were relatively crappy. Well, now when it comes to the backbones, again, we're not talking about the top, right? We're not talking about the top because the top, when it comes to neutral cards, is not in classic or basic cards. They're in the expansions.
And in fact, the average quality of your deck, on average, would go up higher from the absence of these two sets. Because if you just look at like tier score and quality of all of these cards, it's not great. Like if you were to compare classic and basic to an expansion, you'd be like, wow, this expansion sucks.
Yeah.
If you were to just call these sort of expansions, because they have a lot of bad cards. Because as classic and basic cards, it's just something for people to build upon. It's not like,
remember, all the basic cards are literally free.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you're gonna have a couple of ones to stand out, like your fireballs and your flame strikes, but it's gonna be a lot of losers
especially
in there too.
Neutral cards, right?
Yeah.
Like basic neutral cards. The best cards that we're talking about from here are Acidic Swamp Ooze, Yeti, Senjin Shieldmaster, and Stormwind Champion. Those are like the highlights of your neutral basic cards. Those are like the best ones, right? And we're getting rid of those, and there are some real stinkers up in there as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But yeah, so you get rid of that. You're getting rid of a lot of really bad 1-drops and a lot of really bad 3-drops. And you're not getting you're getting rid and you're not getting rid of good 1-drops or good 3-drops. You're getting rid of decent 2-drops and decent 4-drops. With those gone, and with how Blizzard has been working to like compensate 3-drops and 1-drops, you're actually going to get a curve that is very good on 1 and 3, like okay-ish on 2 and 4 and 5 and so on. So curve wise, it's going to look more like how it looked last year, where you were very happy with 3s. Like you're very happy not starting on 2 and just starting on 3, and that would be fine.
Let's go through. I want to go through some of the 3-drops, the neutral 3-drops that are here, just to give you guys an idea. We have Basilisk, Eggnapper, Death Speaker, which is not really a 3, but still powerful 3 cost card. We have Hired Gun, Hildnir Frost Rider. Remember that, guys? We have Argent Horse Rider, Tar Creeper, Dragon Slayer, Wasp, and we still have some decent like 3/4s and 4/3s, which I won't mention. And then we have stuff like Lone Champ, Stonehill Defender, etc., etc. And I still haven't mentioned so many 4/3s. Like they printed so many 4/3s afterwards.
Yes.
So your turn 3 is really, really powerful now. And that's something that a lot of people experience. We had the skip 1, skip 2, strong 3-drop meta. I'm not saying that exactly will come back because that was predicated on a lot of AoEs, which we don't have anymore. But the quality in 3 is definitely returning.
Yep. And for 1-drops, you have Glacial Shard, Zombie Chow, Firefly, Mistress of Mixtures. They're all back. Those are totally above curve 1-drops. Like, when do you have, like, what meta do you have 4 above curve 1-drops? Well, I guess Firefly's not above curve, but it's really good.
It is very good, yeah.
Yeah, and that's not even counting your, like, 2-1s that, like, do more, right? I didn't even count, like, Dire Mole or Clockwork Gnome, or Arcane Anomaly. Those are all, like, stuff is happening on the 1-drop side as well. On the other hand, if you look at 2-drop, you know what the 10th best 2-drop is going to be?
Ooh, what is the 10th best 2-drop? Tell me.
All right, we'll go 12th because the 10th is actually decent. The 10th is Micro Machine, so that's actually kind of decent. The 12th is Nerubian Egg.
Oh, what?
I think, or I'm gonna look into that and see if that's a bug in the system. But if Nerubian Egg is this high,
there's enough. Maybe there's enough. Like,
that means there's probably enough buffs that are in so many classes that the Nerubian Egg is actually really high. So I don't know. Maybe this is a hot take. Nerubian Egg, best card.
Yeah. But what you're gonna see as well.
Oh no, Nerubian Egg is not so high in Druid. Why is it so high in Neutral?
Well, Druids actually don't have that many buffs anymore.
Really? Mark of the Lotus is coming back.
Mark of the Lotus, but they're missing Power of the Wild. And yeah, they're missing Mark of the Wild, Mark of Nature. That Druids actually like are missing a ton of buffs. They don't have Savage Roar anymore. You know, they're missing a ton of those cards. Like, some other classes have more ways to proc it than Druid now, which was one of the best classes to proc something like an egg with.
Okay, you know what? Screw this. There's an error here somewhere in Nerubian Egg. It's higher than it is in any class in Neutral. Well, so that's not how this works. So that's wrong.
All right. Well, you know what? It's good. All right. We're doing this live, and we're finding mistakes live.
Yeah. We also have had like 3 days to do all this. I know. So literally, what we did is we hit the recalculate button with these parameters entered in, because there's no new cards, right? And so, like, this is the result. I haven't actually audited it yet. So it'll go through the 2 rounds of auditing before it gets released on Tuesday.
What ADWCTA was saying about kind of less swings overall, that's definitely true. But when you also look at these minions that you were dropping as well, there's a higher percent chance that they're just going to be a little bit weird, right? Like, you have less of a chance to just have the normal 2/3 or 3/2s, the 4/5 on 4, you know, the 3/3 that maybe does something else on 3. Instead, you're going to have like just weird cards that, you know, have a death rattle, give you something else. They're poisonous, or they like have initiative or something. That's what you should be expecting now, because what these cards wanted to do, you know, for all of these expansions, is like, oh, these are in addition to your boring cards. So you have your boring choice and you have the more exciting choice. But now we just have exciting choices all throughout.
One more overall like thing. No, so you're basically like, you know, your curve's gonna look a little different, and 3s are gonna be more powerful than they normally are. The second big difference, and this is gonna be a huge difference. You're gonna notice it immediately. The game is not going to have an element of reach, because all the reach cards are in classic and basic. The amount of reach that any class has is now like less than halved. And the classes that are known for their reach, like especially something like mage, right? They're down to Fireland's Portal now. That's it. That's their thing. And they can't discover reach cards either. So all the cards like Primordial Glyph, or like generate a random spell that generates you a random card. The pool, if Blizzard doesn't make a bug, the way Blizzard normally does Arena is that anything not in the arena is excluded from the pool of random or discover. So that means there's just going to be very, very, very little reach in the arena. Your big neutral reach that's coming is Kraken. But if you think of Kraken as reach, Argent Commander was reach at 6 mana, right? In neutral. So you're not really like adding anything. You're also missing a lot of neutral cards that buff 2. Like +2/+2. Fungal Mancer is probably your best shot of reach now. So
Bone Mare?
Bone Mare, that's true. A lot of
Bone
things
Mare
with basically 2 to 4. But they are conditional. They are less frequently seen than before, and your big reach cards are all gone.
Yeah, and even just your kind of sub-optimal reach cards from neutral, a lot of them are gone. Bluegill Warrior, Wolf Rider, Reckless Rocketeer. These are all things that, maybe on a game-to-game basis you didn't fear as much, but you take out these cards and it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
It's really a huge deal in terms of base damage, but also just, your initiative on the board as well. So, take all of that into consideration, and it definitely adds up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, if you're looking at and when I say the big reach are gone, I mean look at Warrior. There's no more Gorehowl. There's no more Soltharaz. There's not even Arcanite Reaper anymore. You just have Death's Bite as your biggest one. Like that's a huge loss. You look at Warlock, and you have Fellfire Potion, which is really actually Warlock's fine. Warlock's fine in many ways. I don't even anything I say just don't count Warlock.
We don't need like we don't need to go into so much specific because I want to go class by class.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Fine.
Save it for the class.
But obviously, for Mage, Pyroblast is gone. Druid, right?
Right.
Swipes and your Starfall fires.
Yeah. So, do you have anything else about neutrals?
About neutrals, I was just talking about how the overall game is going to be impacted by classic and basic going away.
Sure.
But yeah, I think those are the things you'll notice the most. A weirder curve. Merps will say more craziness, right? And then also the reach element is gone. But let me push further on what happens when the reach element is gone from almost all the classes. When reach element is gone from almost all the classes, what happens in a game without reach? In a game without reach, you can't be aggressive, right? Your most important decision outside of which cards to play in a game is how you attack, whether you trade or go face. The game in the last few years have been made much more dynamic than the game before, because at least in the arena, because it created this tension of, it's better now to go face than it is to trade in many situations. Whereas back in the day, it was oftentimes we're talking 75% plus, 85% plus times better to go face. Better to trade than to go face, which made for kind of a stale decision-making game. You're almost always trading, and the good players recognize that 10 to 15% chance to go face, and the okay players just never went face until they cleared the board. And that was what most players did who knew how to play the game, because you get pretty good results by doing that. And the bad players just all went face, because that seems like a good idea when you have no idea what you're doing. So with that element gone, you really have a stale decision making happening on the board, and that's a result of your classic and basic, basically reach not being in the game. While survivability, in terms of your large ridiculous taunts or your heals, are still very much in the game, because Blizzard kept printing a lot of heals and not a lot of reach.
Yep. Cool. Good point. All right. Can we talk about the classes now?
Yeah. Let's talk about the classes. It's just because I haven't really sat down and analyzed all this. It's only happened on Friday, and I've been so busy. But so it's really worry. Just
I will take the rest of the podcast.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm thinking about it's really just hitting me right now how stale the game is going to be on the board.
Oh yeah. And also, no fear lots of times.
Yeah.
Oh, now, I'm not talking about dual classes right now, okay, guys? Dual classes, it's going to be some weird, just weird stuff going on. But I want to just talk about the classes. Let's take it one at a time. I want to give you guys an idea of what's going away, right? And then what the classes look like, just by themselves first. All right, sounds good. Let's start with Druid. Man, Druids, if you guys enjoy the druid playstyle, what's the first thing that comes to mind? It's flexibility, right? It's the choose one cards, and it's the options that druid has in the like early game, mid game, late game, whenever, right? Okay, that's all gone. Your options are gone. Your flexibility is gone. All these like choose one cards that you've relied on, Power of the Wild, Wrath, Druid of the Claw, right? These are all gone. Starfire, Nourish, nope, all gone. Oh, you wanted some reach with Swipe and Starfall? Gone. You wanted to, finish off the game with Savage Roar? Nope. So that's all gone. And you might think, wow, that's a lot. Druids must suck now. Probably not. What happens is you just have a nice early slash mid game class that has really good early early game minions. You're gonna have Living Roots, you're gonna have Enchanted Raven. On 2, you have Tortolan Forager, Anodized Robocub. No one has thought about that card in a while. Druid of the Saber. On turn 3 of Crypt Lord.
Wait, the last card. Meta had Anodized Robocub. I thought about it all the time.
All right, you think about it because you're a nerd, okay? All right, like all the cool people, like our listeners, all right, they don't think about it that much. But we got Crypt Lord, we got Mounted Raptor. So we have like really powerful cards. The problem is you don't have those finishers, right? You don't have the swipes, you don't have the starfalls. But in a meta in which you're not going to have that much removal, right? And the swings are going to be a little bit smaller overall. Like, damn, that Crypt Lord can turn really, really big. Your like turn 1 Living Roots can get a lot of work done. So we'll see what they do with the micro adjusts and everything. But druids, if we're talking about a board centric kind of meta in which it really does help to be on the board first, in which you could dictate trades, that's not bad at all.
Yeah, so Dragon Maul Scorcher is going away. That's no more 1 damage to everything in neutral. Like, you're now waiting to Corrupted Seer, which deals 2 damage to everything on 6. So if you're gonna get up ahead starting on turn 1 onto the board, druid or no druid, you're gonna be able to do some damage if your opponent isn't starting until like 3, for example, like turn 3. And by deal a lot of damage, I don't mean deal damage to the face. I mean you're gonna secure that board. And if you can do anything with the board at all, with the board, you're going to be in really good shape.
Yep. All right, cool.
Again, so does not apply against warlocks or as a warlock. Just going to caveat that with everything we say now.
Yeah, I know. All right, let's talk about my favorite class, Hunters. All right. With Hunters, right now, if you're playing Hunters, you're playing a mid-range hunter. That's definitely the kind of hunter that you are the most accustomed to. And what are we going to be missing from Hunters in the Classic and Basic set? It's a lot of cards that have been good in Hunters forever, regardless of your playstyle. So you're missing Freezing Trap, you're missing Hyena, Deadly Shot, Unleash, Eaglehorn Bow, Explosive Shot, Savannah Highmane. Those are...
pause there for a second. I want to point out 3 of those cards. Which is, it's one of those cards, but then the other 2. So it's no Unleash, and you're not gonna have a desert whatever hammer thing spear that you have now.
Really, that was the first thing you thought of? It's like, oh, what is it? It's a hammer.
You hit things with it. That's what hammers do.
Okay, I guess all of the hunter.
I think the worst part is that like hammers aren't. It's just like a spell that deals 3 damage in this game. You don't even have like a hammer. Anyway, you're also missing Scourge. I forget what it was called. The 6 mana card that summons a board full of 1/1 rush stuff. Basically, you're missing all of your ways to do. Oh, Explosive Trap is also no longer in the game, right? Yes. So you're missing all of your ways to like do the hunter stuff that hits multiple things and pings a lot. Like
multi-shot is gone too, along
multi-shot's
with
gone
Hunter's
too.
Mark. So I
Grievous
only
Bite
went
is
through
in.
Classic. I was gonna go through Basic before
Oh,
you
okay.
rudely stopped
Okay,
me.
I didn't know. Why split Classic and Basic up is one thing.
Because they're on different tabs, so it takes me literally a second, and in that like half a second, you're just like, "Oh, he's done." All right, all
Okay.
right, okay.
So,
Check yourself. Check yourself. All right.
Grievous Bite is back. Candle Shot is back, but Candle Shot only hits one per turn. So you basically have a Grievous Bite. Power Shot is back. Like you're working with a very different set of parameters to get the same thing done. I don't know, just something that I find really interesting that's happening with hunters right now. Oh, also, in case you're wondering, all the secrets are not a thing anymore, and anything that supports a secret is not a thing.
Yes. Secrets are no longer a thing, and whenever they play a secret, you laugh because you're like, "Oh, it's like one of three things."
Three.
So
Three.
super
That's
secret.
very generous.
Yeah, I forget. I know there's definitely okay. You got
It's
your
a cat trick. It's a wandering monster. It's a venom strike trap. Okay, hunter has three.
yeah. Oh, I got it right. Haha.
Yeah, you got it right. Oh no, four. There's a bear trap too.
Oh, I forgot. No, there's four. All right. Cool. Yeah, one of four. And some of them I don't know if you should be drafting. So, here's the thing, right? Like, ADWCTA, you keep on pointing out, it's like, okay, we're missing these reactive cards. That's kind of you're going to see that with like every class, right? So I think we're going to be talking about relatively um, to all the other classes, right? So like we have one point of comparison. We have the druid, right? Like
Yeah.
there are definitely because every single class is going to be missing reactive cards.
Yeah, I mean,
of
druids have no reactive cards left because they never print
Yes.
reactive cards for druid.
No,
Like not
they never
multi-hit
do.
ones anyway.
Yep. So with Hunter, they have ways, some ways, as you pointed out, right? They have some ways. We still have the Grievous Bites. We have the Quick Shot. We have Flanking Strike. Uh, so these are ways that we have the Dispatch Kodo. So we have small ways. AOE's like obviously, if the class is AOE's, they're going to be losing AOE's because it's most likely in the classic and basic set. But what I want to point out for Hunter the most is, like you said, you pointed out Candle Shot and everything. They have some strong early game cards and
very strong, and a lot of them.
And a lot of them. So when I was talking about, oh, Druids have some pretty good early game, Hunter has better early game. They have really good early game. Alley Cat, Candle Shot. We have Web Spinners, and you could follow that up with a Glaive Zuka or a Razor Maul or a Kanye Grandmother, King's Elec. Man, they have some really good stuff. And then they could follow that up with Bear Shark, Cave Hydra, all of these really, really solid things. And the amount of reactive stuff, they don't have Deadly Shot anymore. They don't have Freezing. But at the same time, it's like every class is going to be missing a lot of their power cards. And if we are saying that there is merit, there is a lot of good stuff that comes from being on the board first and being able to dictate trades. Hunters so far do it better than druids, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'll be helpful as we evaluate these to be like, okay, we can't just say they are losing a lot because everyone is going to be losing a lot. It's like let's compare it to the classes that we have compared it to so far. I think that's a good way. Sounds good?
All right. Yeah.
All right. On to the next one. Oh, Mage. Mage. The classic. All right. So when you think of Mage, what do you think of, right? You think of reach and you think of large AoEs. Goodbye to both of these. Like, no. Mage has just completely lost its like core identity. So what has it lost? All right. It's lost Blizzard, Flame Strike, all right, in terms of big AoEs. In terms of reach, it loses Fireball, Pyroblast, and it loses Polymorph, right? It loses Frostbolt. It's losing all of these things. It also loses basically all of its secrets. Not that secrets are great anyways. But these are the most notable things, right? When you think of Mage, you think of large AoEs, some good removals, and reach. And it has none of it now. And in return, what does it get? Not a lot, because wow, who knew that mages relied on these two things being its core?
Yeah, it also
So
mages also lost all their freeze.
they lost all of their
All
freeze.
of it.
Like, yeah, freezing is no longer a thing.
Yeah, they have Breath of
So,
Sindragosa now and Snow Chugger to freeze
mhm.
things.
So what is mage now? Mage is small AoE. It has a ton of small AoE. Whether you're talking about Twilight Flame Caller, you can talk about Volcanic Potion. You have just small stuff like kind of Breath of Sindragosa, Arcane Blast, etc., etc. You have one big AoE left, which is Meteor. And I'm not going to include Dragon's Fury, which, if you guys remember, is 5 mana, reveal a spell from your deck, deal damage equal to its cost to all minions. And in previous metas, Dragon's Fury could be a big AoE, and in some decks was almost a guaranteed big AoE. But in this meta, you just won't have enough. You won't have enough big spells. The spells that you do have, they're going to be small, and 80-90% of the chance when if you draft Dragon's Fury, which I highly do not recommend, it's going to be like just a more expensive volcanic potion. That's all it's going to be. So big AoE from mage is just completely gone, and the powerful spells that you're relying on are just going to be Meteor and Firelance Portal. That's it.
Yep. Um. Yeah, it's looking pretty
It's
bad.
looking
If
really
you're
bad.
if you're gonna play a mage, like what do you do, right? Like let's say you still want to play a mage. Well, one, you're in dual class arena coming up, which we're gonna get to after these classes. And so it probably doesn't matter. You're not allowed to play strict mage. But where mage shines right now is their early removals, as Merp said. So if you need to splice some early removal into your build, it's a good reason to put mage into it. But if the other one is elementals, you can build a pretty mean elemental deck because Angoro is in this, and Mage has all their Angoro elementals in.
Yeah. So if we're talking about it's like, okay, well, classes obviously lose a ton, but they still might be okay, right? Like, okay, now that we have 3 data points, Druid, Hunter, and Mage, and so far it's like Mage has lost the most clearly by far. Because those other 2 classes, at least they had curve. Mage, they don't have curve, and they don't have the bailout cards that they relied on so often. Having a Twilight Flame Caller or a Volcanic Potion is nice, but man, like they don't have any meat anymore. And if you don't have meat, you better have stuff that removes your opponent, and they don't have that either. So I don't know. Like they could be micro adjusted up significantly, which would be funny because mage. But yeah, I would not be surprised if we suddenly saw mage be like a bottom 3 class from all of this.
Yeah, you know what?
Crazy.
I take back what I said about secrets. I just counted. Mage has like 6 secrets.
Yeah. No, they have secrets. They secrets just suck for me.
Right. I mean, they're not good secrets.
Mage secrets
but
all suck.
but
Yeah.
interesting. Okay.
No, we're potentially looking at a very dark time for Mage because of this. So that's kind of where we're at. Out of the 3 classes that we've seen so far, like Druid and Hunters, yeah, it's okay. Mage certainly is the loser out of the 3 that we've reviewed so far. And look, because of micro adjust, which are not that micro at all, who knows? But if we take them as is, Mage has lost the most by far because it has relied on those cards the most.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking back at the 3, I want to look at something you haven't mentioned, which is card advantage. I know to you doesn't matter because you're just playing aggro, but
Yeah, I don't
card
care.
advantage is a pretty big deal for like half the stuff you can do in this game at least. And the base card advantage cards, right, that draw you cards. If you think about what these classes have, druids should have like nourish, and that's kind of it. Now they have branching paths and ultimate infestation, so they're as good as they normally are. They don't have starfire anymore, so that's a pretty big loss. But overall, it's like it's okay. Your hunters never had good card draw, and they still don't have good card draw. So you're kind of even here. Only the very new sets for Hunter starts giving it a lot of card advantage, and those sets, you have flanking strike, that's okay for card advantage. but generally like you have to rely on like ball of spiders. Like that's not your best plan. But mage, this is the big one because mage always had arcane intellect to fall back on, and now you're relying on Kabbalist Tome, which give you 3 random mage spells, but that's an epic. And after that, you have, I don't know, like duplicate. Like I was looking at these, you don't really have Echo of Medivh, another epic card. Like you've gone from having pretty good sources of card advantage to being a little, I don't know, a little iffy on it.
Yeah.
Like I think that's going to be a big deal, especially because a lot of your power cards are your like 2 and 3 mana small board clears, which don't really do that much card advantage wise.
Yep. Cool. All right. Let's move on to the next class, and that is Paladin. So, if you guys thought that, oh man, well, sucks for Mage, you know what really sucks for? It really sucks for Paladins. Paladins are losing their core identity as well. So, what they're like, when you think of Paladins, you think, oh, they buff stuff on their side of the board, and then they do things to your minions, right? They don't harder move, but they do stuff with it. Yeah, that's gone. So you're losing Argent Protector, you're losing Outdoor Peacekeeper, a quality which went from a really good card to like a pretty decent card. They're losing that as well. No Sword of Justice, so some of their flexibility is gone as well. But man, what Paladins really like? This is like 100-0 here. You always thought of Paladins as having powerful turn 4 plays, right? In fact, early on in Hearthstone's history, this was a problem. They had too many good 4 mana cards and not enough good cards in the other slots. That's all gone. Like literally, you don't have a sort of abundance of riches problem on 4 anymore. You have a not enough good 4s problem now because here is everything that is missing on your turn 4. Blessing of Kings, Consecration, Hammer of Wrath, True Silver Champion. So those 4 mana cards are all gone. And if you look at Paladins after the change, your best 4 mana cards end up being like Keeper of Oldemon. It's still here. It's still really good. And yes, it's one of the best cards. However, Silver Moon Portal. It's like, okay,
You're
we're
done.
getting...
You're done. You're Keeper of Oldemon
You're
and
done.
nothing. And Keeper
And
of
nothing.
Oldemon's like, I mean, it's good on curve, but it's not like the best curve card.
No, like lots of times you can't even use it really, right? Like if they have something out there and you're just Keeper of Oldemoning it, like sometimes they have just like a 3/2 out on the board. You're like, oh my god, like I can't play this. It's actually unplayable.
Okay, but can we focus on what Paladin is going to get?
They're
because I feel like you're not overselling how much crappy 4s are gone, right? The whole Paladin identity is gone. But their power.
Paladin, they are gaining lots of power, but they're losing a ton of power as well. So what Paladins really lost is they lost their swing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Paladins lost almost all of their swing potential, and their swings came from 2 ways: either buffing their stuff and overkilling your thing while keeping their thing alive, or like Outdoor Peacekeepering your guy, right?
Yeah.
Like you drop a Border Fist, they Outdoor Peacekeeper, and suddenly that's one of the biggest tempo swings in the game. They're losing all of that. They do gain good 1-drops like Righteous Protector.
So what the Paladins lost is the ability to take advantage of the fact that they have a board early on. What Paladins have gained in excess is the ability to take that board in the beginning. Because initially, right, in Classic and Basic, Paladins couldn't keep the board in the beginning. That's how we always played against them. But if they had the board on turn 4, you were screwed because they're just going to win the game. You're going to flip that around now, because since Classic, all Blizzard's been doing is printing Paladin more and more cards to help them gain the board in the beginning and come back later on, because they recognize that they went a little too far in the other direction. So you're going to see all the big cards that you're going to go over right now are cards that get you the board in the beginning, except now you get to turn 4 and you can't do anything with it. So it's still fair. It's just it's totally different class now.
It's an extraordinarily different class. And here's what I fear for Paladins, right? Here's exactly what I fear. Right now, they have a problem. Just looking at the cards that are in which you are absolutely correct. They have great, very early game cards, right? Very, very early game cards. Ones and twos, they are, they're looking real nice there. Late in the game, they're looking really, really nice.
Mm-hmm.
Spike Rich Steed, Vine Cleaver, Dino Size, right? We have
Grime Street Protector.
Yep, Grime Street Protector. We're looking at some like really, really good cards in the late game.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is your mid game, like your 4s and 5s. Like there's really a weakness here. Like there's a significant weakness, and one of the good things about the Paladins and the cards that are going away was that was a great bridge.
Yeah.
Like the Outdoor Peacekeeper or the Argent Protector or all of these 4-mana cards I mentioned, even something like a Humility, right? Like a well-timed Humility. These are great bridges for you to ultimately get to your late game stuff, because Paladin has always had good finishers. For like, ever since a few expansions have come out, they've given Paladins good finishers, and all you needed to do is bridge to that. And that's the problem I see with Paladins right now. That bridge, that 4, 5, 6 period, it's going to get pretty weak. And one of the problems that Paladins have always had is once they're off the board, they don't have a way to get back. And this is with their like get back cards, right? Like Equality and Consecrate and Avenging Wrath and all of that stuff. Now it is literally impossible. So
Subdue is not going to be in. Keeper of Oldemont only gets you so far.
Yep.
And I think that's it. Is that it?
That's it.
Oh,
like
God.
They don't have what. Yeah. So you see the problem here, right? Other classes are able to keep up, and it's not as punishing for some other classes if they are not like on the board, because so much of their cards, Paladin cards in the late game, it's an absolute necessity for you to keep the board. So that's really the problem that I see. And so, once again, micro adjust.
But not even just micro adjust. We're going into dual class arenas, which means that you're never going to be able to pick Paladin. So what do you do with Paladin? As a great way to get on the board and stay on the board in the early game, and then great finishers. You pick a class that has some stuff going from it in the mid game, or you pick some class with some like comeback mechanisms that can also work if you're ahead. And then you put them together, and you're doing quite well. The problem, like after the dual class arena, I don't know what the Paladin's doing. You're exactly right. Like, what are you Grime Street Protectoring? Your 1/1s? Like, all this stuff. You've lost the ability to be menacing with your buffs. And it's like one Spike Rich Steed aside. Like, you've got just Potion of Heroism, which doesn't even increase attack.
Right.
Cog Hammer, great card.
Yeah.
But again, like, it's not really being put together.
It's like you better hope that you curve out well in the early game, and you are lucky enough to, number one, draft that Fungal Mancer, and number two, get it on 5 and hit it with something, right? Because like you're not getting bailed out by your class cards. Like you're not going to be able to play that True Silver on 4, that Blessing of Kings on 4, to really bridge you into the late game for you to dominate. So yeah, like on just a pure class analysis, I'm like, yeesh, this is a real problem here. Because it doesn't matter how strong you start off, if you have a weak turn 4 followed by a weak turn 5, that turn 1 tempoing, great tempo play of Lost in the Jungle followed by a Shield and Minibot pretty much doesn't matter because you weren't able to capitalize on it. All right, cool. You ready to talk about the next class?
Yeah.
All right.
Next class is Priest. Okay.
Should I go through the cards that we're gonna miss?
No. Can I just go through the cards that we're gonna hate? Because I just took a look at this for the first time.
It's gonna be a lot of them. This is why I wanted to talk about the cards that are going away.
I don't think it'll matter. I don't think
it doesn't matter. That's the thing. Okay, in terms of the only cards that you guys will think matter that are going away for Priest, Temple Enforcer, and that's even like take it or leave it. Akanai Soul Priest, Thought Steal.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, but why would you
and
take
Shadow
your
Madness.
opponent's
Shadow
cards
Madness is
when your cards are so much better?
right. Shadow Madness and Cabal Shadow Priest. These are
Yes.
probably the two that you're like, ooh, okay, like I am gonna miss having these. And then from the basic set, you know, you're missing actually like some of the
Holy
all-time
Fire.
priest cards. No, no.
I mean, sorry, Holy Nova.
Holy
That's Holy
Nova,
Fire to me.
yeah, Holy Nova, Northshire Cleric,
Hmm.
Shadow Word Pain, Shadow Word Death, Mind Control. So you might think it's like, oh wow, Priest is losing a ton. Oh no, 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 no. All right, ADWCTA, what do priests have?
So
What are
they
they
what
getting?
one thing they have definitely lost is basically all of their like healing related stuff. Like once you don't have a Northshire
Yep.
cleric, you really need a lot of heal related stuff to make it work. And they're not getting a lot of the heal related stuff. They have a Darkshire alchemist that like heals. But in terms of stuff that does stuff with healing, you don't have your Auchenai anymore, right? Like what are you gonna do?
Yep.
Are you going to win the game on Light of the Narus? No. So priest healing, not so much, which is a great reason to not pick heal as your hero power. Not that I know why you would want to in dual class anyway. But if you're ever picking priest, pick him as the main class, not as the hero power class. But yeah, okay. So cards you're gonna hate, right? Like the first thing I saw is on the top of our tier list. These are the cards at the top of our tier list. Psychic Scream, Dragonfire Potion, Light Bomb. They're all in. All of them. They're all
All of them.
epic, so it's not like as bad. But still, that's
Yeah.
three like totally busted huge board clears.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know.
Now, in case you don't want a board clear, here's what else is back that caught my attention. Cabal Talon Priest, Dark Cultist, Radiant Elemental, with
Valen's chosen.
unidentified elixirs.
Yeah. Valen's chosen. It's
Valen's
back.
Chosen is back too, yeah.
Really, what the priest has gained is just I'm not saying this is addition by subtraction, but it's like priests in terms of how powerful they were and how annoying they were, they never relied on it's like, oh, I need Shadow Word Death. I need Holy Nova. Because it's like, hey, you still get Excavated Evil, right? Excavated
Mm-hmm.
Evil is still in. And you still have all those AoEs. So like, yeah, Nova was nice, but Nova was actually a little bit better because you had something like Northshire Cleric. If you take away Cleric, Nova takes a slight hit as well. So yeah, you don't have that anymore, but you still have the other AoEs. And for what you're losing, right? Like I said before, every class is losing a ton. With Priest, you're not losing something that you can't get back anywhere else. Like Druids lost Starfire and Swipe. You're not getting those back. Like they never printed more Druid cards exactly like those. Um, but with Priest, it's like, okay, you're missing Shadow Word Death, but you still have Entomb. And if you're playing a specific style, sometimes Entomb is just better than Shadow Word Death. So yeah, you're missing these really good cards, but what you're getting back are super high quality cards uh, that a lot of times do the exact same thing, or some cards that do something that Priest couldn't do at the very beginning, and they're being backed up by tons of things that do the same thing. So like super tempo cards like Dark Cultist and Cabal Talon Priest. These are ridiculous tempo plays, or Shrinkmeister for that matter. So how is Priest going to play from now on? You can actually still play a little bit of control if you get the right cards. But man, if you just tempo out onto the board and get a few of the buffs onto them, your hero power suddenly becomes the best hero power in the game because you're able to heal 2 every single turn. And then, you know, you can follow that up with Entombs. You can follow that up with your additional buffs, your heals, you know, your Darkshire Alchemist suddenly gets value. And you can just win from there. It's pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna hate everything related to priests. I normally hate everything related to priests, but this is gonna be some next level stuff.
I know. So you can play Tempo Priest. You love Tempo Priest.
Yeah, yeah. We'll see. We'll see how Temple Priest does.
I know. You can
Um,
also still play the super annoying priest
I
because you have
think
all those
most
big
people
AoEs.
will play the super annoying priest
I'm
because of all the
sure.
big AoEs.
I'm sure. And then you have big AoEs. You still have Potion of Madness, right? It's like you lose Shadow Madness, but you gain Potion of Madness. Aha!
Yep, I'll take
Oh
that trade.
gosh, I think you will always take that trade.
All
Okay,
right, let's move on to the best class in the game at the start of every single expansion launch. Now it's going to be Rogue. Why? Because they don't do micro adjust, and Rogue has the most insane hero power. What's Rogue getting back?
Rogue is getting back lots of small stuff. They're getting back lots of small stuff. But let's. All right, I want to talk about what they are missing. They are missing so much removal now. So much removal. It's crazy. So in terms of the amount of removal, big and small, Rogue loses the most by far out of all the classes. They're missing Betrayal, Cold Blood, Eviscerate, Perdition's Blade, SI7 Agent, Kidnapper, Backstab, Deadly Poison, Sap, Fan of Knives, Shiv, and Assassinate. I'm not even mentioning Assassin's Blade because it sucks. But just in terms of initiative and removal, they are missing all of those things, which has been a hallmark of Rogue. Their ability to efficiently remove, really get ahead on tempo in that way, big removal and small removal. They're missing all of those. And as for their minions, it's like, whatever. Like, no one really cared about rogue minions. You're missing Defias. Plaguebringer is also. I mean, that's Plaguebringer is removable as well. So
Mm-hmm.
there, you're just missing another big removal. So that's the big thing about rogues. It's like what one of their core identities has always been. Okay, they can remove and then they can push behind that removal. So that's gone, but the hero power remains, right? The hero power is still good. I know you're looking at the tier list, so you can tell us what they're getting back and what they look like now.
They're getting back Dark Iron Skulker. If
They
you
are.
don't remember Dark Iron Skulker, you're a lucky person, or you had so much PTSD that you chose to forget it. Dark Iron Skulker has not been in the arena since the very first rotation, which happened when Arena went standard, like what 4 years ago now, 3 years ago, 3 years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a card that Blizzard specifically said they're never going to do that again, or anything similar to it. It is a rogue card, 5 mana, 4/3. Battle Cry, deal 2 damage to all undamaged enemy minions. So backstab everything on your opponent's side of the board, and it's a 5 mana, 4/3. It was, how do you play against a rogue, right? Normally you spread out because they can't do anything about it. Well, this punishes that. It's one of the less well designed cards that Blizzard's printed, and we haven't seen it back because Blackrock Mountain is rotating back into the meta for the first time since we had wild rotations. Every other set has had its turn except for Blackrock Mountain, and Blackrock Mountain is coming back here. There's some other cards notable in Blackrock Mountain, but this is by far the biggest one. Like Blackrock Mountain, it has crappy neutral cards that you really don't have to worry about. It has like some relevant class cards. Flame Waker being one of the big ones. But Dark Iron Skulker is definitely your like big, right.
Yeah, lots of times it'll just be like, okay, well, I can't really play Dark Iron Skulker, and if they have it, I guess I just lose. You're just gonna lose sometimes. That's it. Don't get too angry about it. That's kind of it. Dark Iron Skulker is gonna ruin a lot of people's arena runs, and that's just the way it is. So, um, Rogue still has, or not still has. It's getting Dark Iron Skulker. It will still have Vilespine Slayer, but this is one of the only times in which I am a little bit worried about Rogue because it's one of those situations where they're losing so much removal and so much initiative. So obviously the hero power is really, really good, but if we're looking at the removals that they have now, they're just basically honest removals. They have Shadow Strike, which is good. 3 mana, deal 5 damage to deal 5 damage to an undamaged character, but that's like pretty standard. You're not getting like an insane amount for that. So what? And then you have Envenom Weapon, but that's a lot of times 5 mana, and you get an extra charge, which is nice. But once again, without those multiple initiative cards that you typically get, it's much harder to protect your face. So it's much harder to use the Envenom Weapon efficiently, especially in the late game. So yeah, I mean, look, it's too early for me to say that rogues are doomed. But it's not so easy for me to say that even without microadjust, it's like easy rogue number 1, because they are losing a ton of removal.
Yep.
By far the most out of any class, because the basic and classic cards are all removal. Like, I named those cards. That's basically it. Like, you don't have any other cards really. They just had, like, their basic and classic cards are all freaking removals or damage or something.
Yeah.
So
yeah. The one thing you don't worry about with Rogue is hard removals, because you said Allspine's back. Sabotage is still there. Venom Weapon is still there. You're still going to get a large amount of hard removals, especially compared to other classes in this meta.
Yeah,
so
they're
that
still
identity
there.
is still intact as far as that goes. For
Right.
your small removals, you have like a normal amount of small removals now, right? Like, you're worried because they don't have a ridiculous amount of small removals. But you have your Jade Shurikens, your Understudy Valiant, your Goblin Auto Barber, if you are in the right class. Your Shadow Strikes, like your Shadow Blades. You got stuff.
The big thing is that they are missing their tempo removals. Like, they're really, really good, efficient removals, right? Betrayal, Eviscerate, Perdition's Blade, SI7, Backstab. All those are gone. And
Yeah, but
a lot of
Understudy
times,
Valiant is as much of a tempo removal. Goblin Auto Barber is as much of a tempo removal. Shadow Strike is as much of a tempo removal. Shadow Blade is as much of a tempo removal. Like, what I'm
it's
saying is that they don't have like a ridiculous, insane amount of tempo removal, but they
Mhm.
still have more tempo removal than most other classes in this meta.
They have good amount, but it's like with the other classes, like classes just didn't have as efficient of removals as rogues. So rogues losing a large amount and still having some is still worse than a lot of classes, like basically not having any tempo removals and then not having any
Like, you look at Druid. I'm just
anymore.
looking at the ones that have gone by, right? Druid
Mhm.
has fewer tempo removals.
They've never had
Hunter has
tempo
more tempo
removals.
removals.
Yeah.
Mage has fewer tempo removals. Um, Paladins have more tempo removals. Priest have fewer tempo removals. Like, it's like one another, one another. Like, Rogue is now pretty middle of the road when it comes to small removals and still leading in large removals. So,
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, overall, they definitely have fewer removals than they used to have, but they're still, like, they're not in. Like, the way you're presenting it almost seems like they're going to be, like, below average. They're still going to be above average. They're just no longer dominant.
They are above average, but they were actually dominant before. And the next two classes that we're talking about, I think it's going to shift it a lot. Like our sort of um, the point at which we're judging it.
Okay.
Because a little bit of a preview, I think shamans and warlocks are some pretty like they're shamans won a little bit, warlocks won big.
I mean, warlocks
But
don't count in
warlocks
this.
kind of don't
No,
count.
they don't count in this upcoming meta. It's just play warlock. You'll have a different gaming experience.
Definitely. Okay.
Let's
Look,
do shaman.
let's talk about shaman. All right. So here's what shamans are missing. The cards that you actually care about. They're missing some AoE. So Forked Lightning, Lightning Storm, like those are out. A lot with Bloodlust, but that wasn't really AoE. Stormforge Axe, one of the best cards of all time. That is out. No more Feral Spirit, no more Fire Elemental, no more Flame Tongue Totem, and no more Hex. So, a good sampling of stuff. But a lot of shaman cards are also just not that great, number one, or kind of weird, right?
Yeah.
and sort of just not super duper great as well. And wow, like what do you know? They printed some really freaking good shaman cards in the expansions to make up for the fact that shamans are random and kind of weird. So yeah, you have Tunnel Trog still. You know, we have it today. We're still going to continue to have it on turn one. You're still going to have Unstable
Evolution.
I know. You're
That's
still
the
going to have
card.
that. But now in turn two, yeah, you're going to have Tunnel Trog into Totem Golem. Haha, everyone loves that kind of stuff. As for big removal, we still have Crushing Hand. And then you're getting Warring Zapomatic back. You're going to have Spirit Claws onto as well.
Spirit Claws? You mean Jade Claws?
And Jade Claws. Yeah,
Who cares about Spirit Claws?
Well, I was gonna say Spirit Claws, and even better, we have Jade Claw. You just don't let me finish my statement.
The Spirit Claws is like we rated at 88.
Yeah, you can't mention Jade Claws first and be like, oh, and they also have Spirit Claws.
Are you gonna mention Burlock too? Like, it's not good cards.
You never have like you always have the appetizer and then the main course. God. Otherwise, all right. Look, they also have Jade Claws. They actually have Jade everything. So Jade Lightning. That's coming back. They have 4 mana 7/7 coming back as well. Shamans are in a good spot. They have like good synergies, powerful cards. And as for the cards that they're missing, you're just like, would I give up all of those cards in order to have a higher concentration of these really good cards? Yes. The answer is yes. Definitely yes. Shamans won. Shamans are a big winner in this huge exchange because, like we said before, if you just say like, are they losing good cards? The answer is always going to be yes, right? But how are they in relation to the other classes? Right now, Shaman is a big winner because they gain a ton.
And just looking down at their 4 drops, right? Flame Wreath Faceless is back. Master of Evolution is back. We talked about Jade Lightning. Fireguard Destroyer is back. Like, this is I mean, they're the new Paladin with the powerful 4s. And one thing that shamans can really take advantage of, so thank God buckets are gone, by the way. If buckets are here, shamans would be insane. Because they have mech synergies with the power mace. That's a 170 card. So the way you start thinking about how good cards are in the non-bucket system is just literally how high the number is on our tier list, Lightforge tier list. Power mace is a 170. You see it, you take it, because it's not going to be up against Jade Claws. It's not going to be up against Unstable Evolution. It's going to be up against crap relative to power mace. So that means if there are mechs, you're going to do better. And there are mechs. It's not like it was in Rise of the Mechs, but there's going to be enough mechs that your power mace is going to hit sometime. You look at something like Jade Claws and Jade Lightning, right? Like, you need these cards to be really good because you don't want to go down to have to take them. And they are. Jade Claws and Jade Lightning are really good cards. This is the class that Jade works in. You also have a little bit of elementals too, to bring up another like synergy. And remember, all the swings are going to be fewer. It is a small swing meta. Like, we're looking at stuff before, right? How's Druid swinging it? It's not. I mean, it never does, but it's not. How's Hunter swinging it? It's not. How's Mage swinging it? They're not anymore. How's Paladin swinging it? Not really too much anymore.
Definitely not.
Okay, Priest is gonna swing it, but that's what Priest did.
Yep. Priest has always done it, and they can still do it.
Yeah. How's Rogue?
But relatively to the other classes, they gained in the swing ability because like Mage is lost, right?
Yes.
So
Priest is a huge swing class now, like even bigger than before. Rogues were never big of a swing class, and they're still not a big swing class. But Shamans have all these little things that are gonna add up to a pretty decent swing boost on top of your like RNG swings and your like evolution stuff, right? So Shamans are high roll and they're good with their base, and they have like so many ways for your draft to turn out okay. Like, Shamans went from one of the least stable classes to like draft and play to one of the most stable classes, even while keeping most of their RNG.
Yeah, so this is a little bit different. Like, for Priest, I would say that they won out a lot of times because you're comparing to the other classes. Shamans just won out, period. Like, we don't even have to say comparatively they won out. They just won out, period. So it's like just a huge win for Shamans so far. Now,
yeah, it's a very good starting class to pick. Their
Yeah,
hero
yeah.
power is still like but like picking it as the starting class for dual class arenas is a very good idea.
Yep. Now, let's talk about
Oh god, let's talk
warlocks.
about warrior. I don't want to talk about warlock.
You want
We're
to talk
gonna
about
end on
warrior
warlock. We're
first?
gonna end on
All right, we'll
warlock.
end on warlock. Okay. All right, let's make this real simple. Let's talk about warriors. Haha. What are they missing? Well, not many. Like, if we're talking about arena staples, right? Like, just stuff that you need to worry
Fiery
about.
War Axe.
Look, yeah, they're missing Fire War Axe. They're missing Arcanite Reaper, the two classic weapons. They're missing Execute. They're missing Cleave, right? No more Corcron Elite. As for the classic cards, no more Cruel Taskmaster, no more Arathi Weaponsmith. These are cards that you would draft a lot of. Good cards. Slam, Frothing Berserker. That's about it in terms of also Battle Rage.
Battle Rage.
Yeah, yeah.
Battle Rage is how
Execute
you
in
draw
the,
cards. Execute
yep.
is how you hard remove.
So these are the cards that they are missing. And that hurts. It definitely hurts. Execute is one of those cards in which there's not really a replacement for it. Like they
Crush.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's like you don't have that many crush effects, right? It's not like with Priest, it's like, oh man, they're missing an AoE. However, do they? Oh wait, they gain 3 AoE. So it's not like that. So yeah, you have another removal, but it's a little bit conditional, and you're not like replacing it in full, right? You're not making up for it and adding on to it. You're just replacing it, and a lot of times that's not enough. So look, they get some really good cards back, obviously. It's like, okay, well, we don't have Fiery War Axe and we don't have Arcanite Reaper, but we do have N'Zoth's First Mate, we have Death Spite, we have Blood Razor, we have Fool's Bane, etc., etc. But the problem is like, oh man, I don't know what Warrior does right now. Like, they can't be that aggressive because if you're missing Execute, right? That's a huge way for you to really push. You can have weapons, but I just don't know. Like, you have the worst hero power in the game, and you're just really missing.
Well, let's start with, we're in dual class arena. No one's gonna take the warrior hero power. You're not gonna take warrior second, right? You're looking at warrior as a base from which to do other classes better.
Yeah,
and
you could do that.
Warriors have some of the best cards in the game still. Fool's Bane, completely insane. Death Bite, insane. King's Defender, insane. Blood Razor, insane. N'Zoth's First Mate, insane, right? Just like Ravaging Ghoul. These are just like some of the best cards in the game, even in this upcoming meta. Like, of the top cards, Warrior, like if you're looking at the very top line cards of a class, Warrior does not do worse than Shaman or even Warlock. Like we're talking about Insanity, even Priest. It's right up there with them. So it's a decent base to start from. What it lacks is that like mid-tier cards that are also good. Because remember, you're going to take the best cards you're offered, and when they're the top cards, you take it, that's fine, but sometimes you're not going to be offered a top card, and you have to take the best card available anyway, which is going to be oftentimes be a mid-tier card. And they just don't have a lot of those, because, I don't know, that's just not how they were printed. So you're going to get it's going to be a little iffy outside of your top weapon. So why would you pick warrior as a base class and put another class on top of it? You do it for the giant flexible weapons. But then what class do you take after that, right? Like, you're not going to take rogue. You're going to take mage. Mage is not doing so hot, but
you take priest.
You take Priest, and now you have a heal instead of your old, crappier hero power, and that works. Actually, I think it may work pretty well.
Yeah, that works.
So if you're going for like ultimate control class, Warrior with Priest is certainly an option. Warrior with Mage, potentially another option, although you're going to want some ability to heal. That's a little missing. But again, the neutral cards heal pretty well in these sets.
Yep. All right, cool. So Warrior not looking so hot, like even relative to the other classes, right? Like, all right, now let's talk about Warlock. Whew, boy. Now, if you guys enjoy playing Warlocks, you guys probably will really enjoy playing Warlocks after the patch. When you guys think of warlocks, what do you think of? Number one, the ability to zoo out, and number two, removals. Tons and tons of freaking removals. AoEs, single target removals. That's the warlock identity. And in fact, in many metas recently, one of the issues was drafting too much removals. And we've talked about this many times. Because of the bucket system, it was extraordinarily easy for you as a warlock to, if you just mindlessly draft, end up with too much AoEs, and that is a detriment to you. So let's see what they are losing here. Okay, well, in terms of the tempo plays, they're losing Flame Imp. That is a huge loss. And then afterwards, in terms of tempo plays, they're losing Voidwalker. Okay. Dread Infernal. They're losing Pit Lord. So that's already, it's like, okay. No.
Why bring up Pit Lord?
Exactly. No, that's it. Now, they're also missing removals, right? No more Shadow Flame, no more Siphon Soul, no more Twisting Nether, no more Hellfire, no more Soulfire, no more Shadow Bolt. And you might think, wow, that's a ton of removals that they're missing. But my gosh, what Warlocks have gained. Yeah, this is exactly the situation that with Shamans, in which, yeah, you're getting rid of some pretty good stuff, but what they gain is absolutely ridiculous. And it kind of is addition by subtraction, because by getting rid of so much removals, and dare I say it, suboptimal removals in comparison to what they actually gain, it really is addition by subtraction. So if you're thinking like, wait, they're getting rid of Shadow Flame and Siphon Soul and Twisting Nether, and what they gain is better? Yes. Because they're getting stuff like Fellfire Potion, Defile, Doom. Like, these are things.
Abyssal Enforcer.
Abyssal Enforcer. There you go. It's like, oh, wait, sorry. It's like, no more Hellfire. We're just going to make it a bit more expensive and add a 6/6 body to it.
Despicable Dreadlord. Like, everything here is more than 160 on our tier list. Like, it's just, and we just named like 5 things.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this is kind of silly in terms of board clears.
Yep. And as for like small removals, it's like, oh man, they're missing Soulfire, Mortal Coil, Demon Fire. Well, that's absolutely fine, because they have, they still have stuff like Drain Soul. They have Dark Bomb. They are getting back Implosion, everyone's favorite card. Whew, Implosion. And if you're worried about small AoE, they get Demon Wrath, which is ridiculously good. So
Defile, which is also a small AoE, and will cook you breakfast too.
Yeah, Defile, like basically at its worst, it's like a 2-mana consecration. At worst. Yeah. And at best, it's like a 2-mana Twisting Nether. So yeah, it really is addition by subtraction in terms of the cards that they're gaining. They get a higher concentration of it, and you don't have this problem of like, too much, like too many removal cards in their pool. And my gosh, it's like, all right, yeah, you don't get Flame Imp, but you keep Kobold Librarian. You have Malkazar's Imp. You have Possessed Village. Like, you regain all of this stuff. You still have Dark Peddler, Vulgar Homunculus. You get Dark Shard Counterman back on 3 with Imp Gang Boss. Yeah. And Siphon Soul is gone, but you have Blast Crystal Potion.
The Queen of Pain is back. It's the Queen of Pain now. She got promoted, I guess.
Well, it's not really okay.
So if you're wondering what the hell the Queen of Pain is, it's Mistress of Pain coming back. This is a pretty good 2-drop as far as 2-drops go. Not the best, but that's always been one of my pet cards back in the day. I'm glad to see her back. They had to rename her and do a new art because Mistress was apparently not PC enough. She still has barely any clothes on. So, I don't know. That's apparently not part of becoming a queen, gaining better clothes. But yeah, it's gonna be nice. If you're playing Warlock and you're looking to play Zoo, like, why? It's fine, right? The hero power is really good for Zoo. You got to pick another class as the base though. if you want to do a Zoo Warlock, maybe a class like Paladin, for example, that can really stabilize your early game, because you have some good 1-drops, but your 2-drops are like, yeah, you have some okay 2-drops, you have some decent 3-drops, but they're not like as special as some of these other classes. You're really relying on it for the hero power. And if you're going
Right.
control, on the other hand, you don't want your hero power because that hurts you, and your cards hurt you. And that was always the balancing factor of Warlock's removals, that hurt itself, and other cards that hurt itself. So once you get rid of your hero power and pick another hero power that, you know, maybe does something Warlocks can't do, because Warlocks can't ping anymore. So Mage is a pretty good place to pair with your Warlock, because Mages no longer have their board clears, but that's still a good control hero power. And Warlocks can do the removal thing. Rogues are still fine with their hero power. If you're going to go control, you might as well do Priest at that point and just like go all in, really, because they just have better cards. Warriors are not a good hero power option, but yeah, I don't know. I'd probably go Priest if I want to go a control Warlock.
I definitely agree. So we've done a lot of these analyses of these classes individually, right? And you know, as a small recap, it's like Warlocks won huge during this exchange. Shamans won. Priests won, but relative to the other classes, I would say, but they still won. And all the other classes are like, you know, they're still okay. You know, they still got something going, but they definitely lost in this exchange of sort of standard versus wild.
Yeah.
So that's where we are individually. And ADWCTA, you've been mentioning a lot of the dual class stuff as well. We're going to be getting dual classes for 3 weeks, and it's just going to be a fiesta, right?
Yep.
It's a lot of it is just going to be, and that's sort of why I haven't been focusing on it and be like, all right, guys, here's exactly the game plan. Because here on the Lightforge, we want to give you not only, you know, good information, we want to build the foundation for you to ultimately become a super infinite arena player. And the lessons that you really learn in dual class arena, they're not really applicable. They're really not that applicable. You actually can pick up some weird habits if you like just, you know, just really sear those dual class arena lessons into your head. It might actually hurt your play. So just have fun with it, guys. Just have fun with it.
But one thing you can do in the dual class arena period in these 3 weeks, if you're like a serious arena player, instead of like, you know, beyond just having fun with it and trying new stuff, is you can get used to life without a classic and basic, because that part's not changing when dual class is leaving. So this is a very good time to figure out what the curves generally look like how you win, you know, things like that. You're going to be at a higher swing than you will be at the end of that. And if they do the same thing they did before, you'll see more class cards than you will afterwards. So the meta afterwards is going to it really is just going to look and feel like shit. So I don't know if they're going to do another event or update after that, or you know, something else. But you could learn a lot about the curve from this. You could also learn a lot about the card pool, because they may be mixing the card pools. So like, learning how to play against rogue shaman combos may not be great for your future skill applicability, but learning how to play around particular cards, or learning what to do when a particular card hits the board. Like, we have all the wild cards back now. This is a great time to practice your wild skills, especially if you have never seen some of these cards before, because you started playing Arena in the last like year or two, right? So I think this is a good time to get rid of buckets. This is a good time to take away standard and basic for a rotation, because dual class arena now is not just meaningless fun. It's also a transition period, and it's also a period where you can arrive at the quote unquote real meta of November, with you know, prepared for it.
There you go. It's been a long podcast.
Yeah, I want to say more about dual classes though, because this is really what they're going to be in for the next 3 weeks.
All right, fine.
All right. So you're wondering how to make a dual class, right? The easy part is you pick a hero power for the second one, because hero powers still mean a lot in the arena. And that means for your second class, you are not going to pick warrior, you're not going to pick shaman, you are not going to pick, you're most likely not going to pick paladin. It's a decent hero power in the arena, but we'll see how far back to classic we go. Like if the decks are really kind of like on the bad side, you can pick paladin, but otherwise, what you're going to want to pick is druid, which is always okay of a hero power. Although I don't think druid overall is powerful enough that you really want to do that. You just have better options.
Yeah.
But again, who knows, right? It's still dual class arena is not like you get to pick two classes. You get offered 3 classes and you pick one. Then you get offered 3 powers and you pick one. So you may have to pick some of these. But your tier 1 power is rogue, obviously, mage, warlock. Like those 3 are your tier 1 powers. Your tier 2 powers is something like priest, hunter, and druid. And if you remember how we talked about these classes, druid really didn't come out too good, right? Like, but you gotta really match what you're doing with your first class. So listen to what Merps was talking about from before about how to pick your first class. And then for your second class, focus on a power that has a set of cards that matches it. So let's say you're going for control, and we've talked about this for a bit. So if you're going for control, what classes may you want to start with? Warlocks have board clears, right? That's really good for control. I don't know what else. Your mages have early game clears. That's really good for control. Priests have board clears. That's really good for control. That's kind of it, right? Those are your big ones.
You can really sort of see what you want to do as well and play towards that. So what I am looking forward to doing, which is actually question from the goat for this week, is essentially what class are you looking forward to playing the most in dual class, like what combination. And I think, you really are looking for synergy, and the synergies are not going to be as important between the two classes as it was in previous years, because you are missing a lot of the class identity, right? So for example, one thing that people did a lot previously was like hunter mage, and then you had hunter's mark and ping, and that was amazing. But what you want to do is, look at how the classes are now, because the classes are completely different, and then find the obvious synergies and the not so obvious synergies. So one of the not so obvious synergy is, if you want to play Paladin as either your first class or your second class, recognize what I said about the lack of mid game. So they have extraordinarily strong early game and late game. And what you just need to do is find a class that has some pretty strong mid game that can help you get to the late game. So what's a class that actually has that? It's Priest now. Like Priest actually has really good tempo stuff with buffs. And Priests actually have extraordinarily strong cards on turn 3, 4, and 5. Like not just strong stuff, like really numerous stuff as well. So that's a pretty decent pairing if you get those that like synergize very well with each other.
Yeah, but in that case, you take Paladin second. It's Priest Paladin.
I think if you take like Paladin Priest, you're still fine as well. Like, because you're going to be on the board, you're going to get your heals. Like both of them actually have some really strong early game, and you're going to be able to take advantage of that. I think I'd actually prefer the Priest hero power, because you're going to get onto the board and you're going to be able to heal. I prefer that to a 1/1. But I think both ways are fine. Like Paladin Priest or Priest Paladin. What I'm looking forward to the most is Warrior Hunter. I think that's going to be pretty strong. Whenever you have a class like this, people want to play a little bit slower. People want to like do fun things. And you say, no, I don't let you do fun things. I just hit you in the face.
Yeah, so that's the aggro side. On the aggro side, you want to start with classes with the base. And the classes with the good early game base is Hunter, obviously. Druid still has a good early game base. We talked about Paladin having an early game base. And Warlock, potentially. So those are your early game base classes. You pick one of them, and then you pick a hero power that has that reach, because you're not gonna have a lot of reach. So hunters stand out. Really, it's just like hunters are so above and beyond the other classes if you're trying to go aggro for the hero power that it doesn't really compare too much. But if you can't get hunter, Mage is fine, Rogue is fine, Druid is fine. Druid has that nice Mark of the Lotus that really works with aggro really well. And I picked those three classes because they're the classes with pings, so you can like chip away at your opponent at the end. That's your like really pathetic reach, but it'll still win you a bunch of games just on it. Mages, you want to stick away from the mage class cards as much as possible, but that hero power is the second best aggressive hero power next to hunters. And rogues have a decent amount, like they lost a lot of stuff, but they still have a lot of really, really good stuff.
Yeah.
All of their weapons become much better if your initial class doesn't have weapons. And right, like you take the best class and you knock them down a few pegs, it's still kind of average. And that hero power, if there's no taunts and until the very end game, is still 2 face damage for 2 mana and control of the board in the beginning, which is very important for an aggressive class. So I think those are your options on the control and the aggressive side. I like that you brought in the Paladin Priest thing, because I think that's kind of like what happens if you don't want to do aggressive and you don't want to do control. You want to do like a normal mid-rangey on the board stuff, right? Like Paladin Priest is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of those things where it's a subtle kind of synergy, right? And these are the ones that you want to look to. So, guys, any preconceived notions that you have for classes, like get rid of that. Like druids aren't really druids anymore. Paladins are not really paladins anymore. So look at what cards they
like
have.
Druids are also good for the on the board mid range style. Shaman is as well.
Yeah, they are. And then just identify it's like, okay, what is this class now good at, and what are they now bad at? And I think Paladin is one of those classes in which I really try to hammer this home. Their strength, which was turn 4 and mid game before, it's like a really crippling weakness now. So you really need another class that is good. And Priest, a class that you really did not associate, relative to other classes being good in the mid game. Damn, they have really strong mid game cards now. So this is just one of those examples where after this, 2 classes that you wouldn't associate with this stuff, this is their identity now. So you mash them together and you have a really good dual class tempo deck. Which
wait, what are the good mid range priest things that you keep mentioning? Because priests have no like good 4 mana cards, and they have like 2 good 5 mana cards.
So remember what I said before about like a lot of the good mid game cards is you keeping your board, right?
So
you can get 3. Out. Yeah. So looking at stuff like Shrinkmeister, Cabal Talon Priest, right? The elixirs, Valen's Chosen.
Okay.
You have
just to clarify, when you say mid game cards, you mean 2 mana and 3 mana cards.
Oh no! You can also have 4 and 5 mana cards as well, like Priest of the Feast, Power Word Tentacles, Darkshire Alchemist. It's stuff that keeps your momentum once you have the board. That's the problem with Paladins right now. You have some good cards in the beginning, but you have like not as many cards to help you keep that momentum in turns 4 and 5, right? Like if you look at it, you have some stuff, but if you like nothing compared to what the Priest has. It doesn't necessarily have to be 4 or 5 mana. Like this is what I was talking about with Outdoor Peacekeeper. Sometimes on turn 5 you can just outdoor their 5-drop and keep that momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
So Outdoor, while it's not like a 4 or 5 mana card, it was a good bridge to your later turns, to your steeds, to your vine cleavers, etc. And now Priest has a ton of those cards, like a Cabal Talon Priest in the turn 5, turn 6, Shrinkmeister with like a Dark Cultist, if we're talking about smaller cards, or just the Power Word Tentacles on 5, right? Like Paladins don't have Blessing of Kings anymore, but if you have a Power Word Tentacles, it's sometimes kind of the same thing. So that's what I'm talking about there. You have an efficient bridge to your late game, which Paladins definitely have, and Priests also have.
I think I'd rather just go with the power. Like, you pick Shaman instead of Priest, because like you're talking about things like Darkshire Alchemist and Priest of the Feast. Like these are somewhere between 100 and like 110 rated cards. They're not Like if they fit, right? Maybe they'll be 130 in your deck or
Well,
something.
mostly talking about stuff like Cabal Talon Priest.
Right, but then you're at 3 mana. You playing that on 4 is like using a 4 mana card, right? For Cabal Talon Priest.
Sure. Well, when you're talking about mid game, you don't have to limit yourself to just 4 or 5 mana cards.
Right.
That's the thing.
But
like
if you're looking for on
talking
turn
about is a
4,
branch.
like let's say you're
Yeah.
Paladin, right? You don't have turn 4, right? That you've lost all of your turn 4s. You have neutrals, and then you're gonna pick another class like Priest that doesn't really have turn 4s. You're going to have kind of a hole in 4, not just with how powerful it is, but also with just not being offered enough potentially, right? Because your class cards still have an offering bonus. If you have 2 classes without like options there, significant ones, you're also at a riskier draft, especially if you're playing a style that requires you to always be on curve. You take something like Shaman instead, and you have all the power cards on 4, right? We're talking about Faceless, Master of Evolution, etc. And of those, Master of Evolution helps you get value out of the cards you have already on the board. You have other cards in Shaman, like Unstable Evolution, that also help with stuff on the board as well. It's not as good as what Priest has when it comes to synergizing off of your board, but just the sheer power. Like, I think you're trying to make Priest fit Paladin a bit more, whereas the Shaman like has the actual curve.
I think if you have the board, definitely the Priest fits a lot better. Shaman is like very powerful as well, but one of the problems I have is or like one of the things I see is like I don't mind Priest Paladin or Paladin Priest. I would definitely mind if I got the Shaman hero power.
Well, yeah, but you don't have to run that risk ever.
Sure. So, but I mean, if you're picking Shaman first,
Yeah.
then it's just a different ball game, right? Then it's just like a different like thing than if you are picking like one the other. Like I'm assuming that you're like picking Paladin first, right? Like if you want to play Paladin, then yeah, like it all starts with remember from the very beginning. Like if you want to play Paladin, here's one.
I think that's my problem with Paladin. I don't think you ever want to play Paladin, and you never want it as a hero power either. The way these are mixing. So I think if you're talking about how to make a good class, right? Like you want to play Paladin when you like for fun, right? Or for discovering how metas work, or for like learning. You don't want to play it for winning. It doesn't quite fit neatly into stuff. Like I feel like the aggro side and the control side are both going to be better, and the mid range side is going to be better if you don't start with Paladin. You start with Priest or Shaman or Druid.
A good first class. You can't go wrong with Shaman. You just really can't. Shamans have really good cards like we talked about, and you're never going to miss their hero power. So I mean, here's the thing, right? Like because if you pick one class, you can't pick it again. You can never get like Shaman, Warlock. So it's one of those things in which you are not only picking a good class with good cards, you're getting rid of the potential to get their hero power, which you definitely do not want. So that's a double win right there. And so if you want to sort of play the odds and if you want to win, Shaman first is so fantastic, because if you look at the other good classes like Warlock, right, you would not mind that hero power at all. It's one of the best hero powers in the game. So yeah, I think the most bang for your buck is probably Shaman first.
Yeah. For one last thing to mention about dual class arenas is Rogue always has something special going on with it for dual class, because it has these cards like Obsidian Shard, like what's that? Ethereal Peddler, which says if you are holding any cards from another class, reduce its cost by 2. That's Ethereal Peddler, on top of being a 5 mana 5/6. And the Obsidian Shard is cost 1 mana less for each card you've played from another class, and it's starting out a 4 mana 3/3 card. Card from another class normally means, in Rogue's case, you have to play a card like Hallucination or something, and you generate the card and then you play it. In dual class arena, you just have those cards. They're just in your deck and they count. So for dual class arenas, Rogues get a couple of kind of unfair bonus super premium cards. So that's another reason to really consider Rogue, especially because it also has the best hero power. So maybe don't start with it, but if you see the rogue hero power come up, I always in dual class arena I always have a lot of trouble not taking it. It's got some advantages in there that work with pretty much everything. Because you look at the rogue cards, they're not particularly aggro, they're not particularly control. They're fine. I mean, they're probably more mid-rangey than anything else, but you can make it work for aggro. I maybe wouldn't take the rogue hero power for control, but if you're doing mid-range or aggro, it's hard to get away from it. And if you're going control, maybe you can get away with it, but it'll also be an okay pick.
Okay. I think that's it. And by that's it, I mean we've talked 2 hours about this.
Well, everything's changing.
Everything's changing, guys. Nothing will ever be the same until the next rotation, in which things might be the same. But that's it. You know, we have dual classes coming up. A lot of our analyses have been about the classes individually, which is a good basis to go with. And then, you know, we apply the layer of dual class arenas. But I hope you guys have fun with dual class arenas. It's always an interesting time. You're going to lose in spectacular fashion, but you're also going to win in spectacular fashion. Just don't take it too seriously. There is not too many micro lessons to take out of it. And by too many, I mean there's no micro lessons to take out of it.
Just macro lessons of what's going on with this new Blizzard thing.
Right. And then afterwards, when the dust settles on this and the 3 weeks of dual class arenas are over, that's when you can just be like, okay, well, what is it like? You should re-listen to this again after 3 weeks.
Definitely.
Of the individual classes and how it works out. Assuming that there's not crazy micro adjustments, it should be exactly like we talked about.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Cool.
So, yeah, that's it. 2 podcasts in one, basically. We analyze the meta that's happening starting Tuesday, and we analyze the meta that's happening a month from now. That's it from us. Until next week, when we will be inside the meta telling you what actually has happened in Dual Class Arena. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Bye.